I've heard a lot of people say if you play fast, you're going to lose your feel. But it seems that the people who say that can't play very fast. It reminds me of the Aesop tale of the fox and the grapes, where the fox is eating a bunch of grapes, but all the grapes he can't reach, those are sour. So how do we know if playing fast will destroy our feel? We're going to have to start playing fast. But when you ask people how to play fast, they all have the same reaction, which is start slow and then go faster. If it were that easy, everyone would be a shredder. So, what are the secrets to shredding and can we use them? This is going to be a very broad overview on how speed works. So if you want me to go into detail over one of these subjects, let me know in the comment section. People seem to be tossing the word shredder around like some sort of diet fad around a fast food restaurant. It's like we kind of know what the word means, but we don't know what it means, and we just toss it to somebody we think we like. We're going to be defining the word shredder to mean someone who can improvise at 160 beats per minute using 16th notes. The reason why we're doing this is because shredding requires proficiency at very high speeds of very technical things. And just saying someone plays fast is very relative. So here we have at least a stable starting point. When we start to analyze all the different equipment that all these different shredders are using, you're going to notice there's almost no consistency. If you have most shredders' guitars, they have very low action. The string's very close to the fretboard. But if you look at Yngwie's guitar, it's scalloped and has very high action. We also notice that we're using different size picks and we're holding the guitar differently. The reason why this is happening is because we all have different size hands. We also have different sensitivities and we have different shapes. So for example, a lot of shredders have ET-like fingers, so they don't have to be so particular about where their thumb is. They can put it over the fretboard and still reach everything. But if you have very small hands, your thumb is going to have to be in a very particular place so you can reach around. I like to use very, very thick picks, but I know some of my heroes like to use thin picks. What matters is that you're comfortable and that you're mobile more than anything else. Your guitar player that you like the most may have a different size hand than you, and you might have to adjust differently because of that. So is holding the pick changing anything? Some of us hold the pick like this, some of us hold it like this, some of us hold it like this, and some of us use this side, and some of us use this side. What matters most is that you're comfortable because we have different hands. Now, what matters more than anything else is that you're using your wrist more than anything else. Some of us actually will start to do this, so we're using our fingers to move. Don't do that. Some of us try to use our forearms. Don't do that either. Use your wrist. The only time the forearm comes into play is when you're trying to make a gigantic transitional movement, which happens very minimally. So make sure that you're comfortable with your pick, holding it in a comfortable way, using your wrist, and the guitar is upright in a very comfortable position. Now that we have our equipment working properly, what in the world picking style should we be using to gain enough speed? When I was in music school, they heavily stressed alternate picking, which is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. The reason why they were doing this was because of guys like Paul Gilbert, Sean Lane, and John Petrucci. They are super fast and technical, and they exclusively use alternate picking. They explained it like this. If you're walking, you go left, right, left, right, left, right. You don't go left, left, right, left, left, right, right, left. It's inefficient. So because you're walking that way, you should also be picking that way. Okay, that totally makes sense to me, but then I ran into Michelangelo Battio. So Michelangelo would actually play with alternate picking. But then he introduced me to something called sweep picking, which is you trying to use as many downstrokes in a row or upstrokes in a row as you possibly can. So for example, this would go down, up, down, 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 up, okay? But if I go really fast, whoa! My head exploded. I gotta learn how to sweep pick. So I spent all day learning all these sweep picking arpeggios. And at the last second, I ran into a guy named Jason Becker, where he showed me Woody Woodpecker. Well, now that I hear sweep picking, all I can think of is Woody Woodpecker. But then I ran into another guy named Frank Gambale. So Frank Gambale had a really interesting idea, which was when you're changing strings, don't change direction. So for example, we're going to use a 3 notes per string here. You would go down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Notice you're getting 2 in a row. You end up going pretty quick. Whoa! Amazing! I gotta learn how to do that. Well, as I got deeper into the economy picking style, I started noticing you had to start setting up licks or ideas so that way the pick would actually end up in the correct place. And I didn't want to do that. That's too much thinking. I can't really think on the fly with that. So now I'm stuck back with alternate picking. But then I ran into Daryl Gable. So the thing I learned from Daryl Gable and Guthrie Govan was that I don't have to be a slave to any particular picking system, especially when I'm in motion. So Daryl would do something bluesy, something like 2, right? And I was like, that's fascinating. He's going between all of them based on the position that he's in. Okay, that means we can do that too. But how in the world am I supposed to practice all of these efficiently? So when I asked my fellow students, how can I play fast like you guys, they all said the same thing. If you want to play faster, you learn this Paul Gilbert lick and you will be a super shredder in no time. This was the lick. I cannot tell you how many people I heard playing that lick. Well, I learned it, did it a billion times, and I was still slow. And then 3 of my teachers gave us this instruction. We were to play every part of the cage system in sequences of 3 and 4 and made sure we alternate picked. So what is sequences of 3 and 4? You start on the first note of the scale and go up 3 notes. Then start on the second note, go up 3. Now start on the third note and go up 3. You go all the way up and all the way down with that particular sequence. The students hated it. They said if they learned that exercise, they became proficient at it, they would lose all their feel and sound horrible. Now, me being the genius that I was, ignored the teachers and stayed with the students, and I remained slow. And then one of my teachers forced me to do the exercise. I did it every day for half an hour, and inside of a month, I was one of the fastest students at the school. When they came up to me and asked me, Sonny, how did you get so fast? I said, hey, I did the sequences of 3 and 4. They said I was wrong or lying and then left. This gives you an idea of what is happening on the internet when it comes to speed. We are just copying things blindly and not understanding how it's working. The point of the Paul Gilbert lick isn't to play faster. The point is to practice alternate picking. It's to practice inside and outside picking. It can be turned into a lick, but it doesn't make it a particularly speed-centered exercise. When you're practicing sequences of 3 and 4 with any type of scale that you're practicing how to get around the scale from different angles. You're also practicing how to synchronize both hands. This means we can start to create exercises based off the necessities that we're looking for. So for example, if we're practicing arpeggios, we should be practicing sweep picking. If we're practicing pentatonics, we should probably be doing alternate picking. If we're doing some sort of gigantic legato section or gigantic scale, we should probably be using 3 notes per string and economy picking. We make our exercises based off the needs that we have. The principle of specificity is trying to explain to us that the more we practice, the better we're going to get at it. But it does not mean that that skill is going to transfer over to other skills. So just because I'm a better jumper, it does not mean that I'm going to be a better runner. But we do still have a baseline for activity. This is why a lot of us work out or exercise with heavy weights. Although we are not directly transferring the skill, our overall strength gets better and we can move that overall strength to whatever skill that we're going to be using. So just because I'm really strong at rugby does not necessarily mean that I'm really strong at football, but the overall strength can transfer over to other skills. So when we're practicing our scales in 3s and 4s, it does not mean that I'm going to be super fast from now on, but it does mean that I can learn licks faster and I can think faster because I already know where those notes are going to be. Our hands are already synced up. That is the point of practicing all these scales and knowing our theory. And so that way we already know where we are going. We're not moving blindly. So the biggest piece of advice that we get is we should start slow and incrementally get faster. But if we look at Shawn Lane, he says something different.
Or the standard way of practicing has usually been learn the lick, really slow, learn all the notes just right, and then play it slow over and over and over and over and over and over. And then get it gradually faster and faster play it slow and get a little faster, and this kind of smooth gradation toward eventually being able to play it fast. But I think what happens psychologically, especially if you practice something too much, you end up getting kind of a mental block on playing it slow and never getting it to a certain fast speed, because the way the brain works, and you just play it too many times so slow and you work up to it, a lot of times it can be a hindrance. So what I did and what I would suggest to people is to just fracture the process. When you get a little faster, and then just totally break with the continuum and jump up into some speed that you can't play at all. Try it at a speed that's way above where you could play it slow. Just go for it. It might be completely sloppy, but then you're trying to clean it up over time, and it's a little different mental and physical process, rather than going from one mental process of playing it slow and getting it gradually faster. You approach it from the way of playing it fast but sloppy, and gradually learn to clean it up. And so I find you can come from another direction and achieve a lot sometimes that way.
I agree with Sean and the traditionalists in this particular idea, because we don't understand what's going to happen to the idea when we speed it up. So for example, I was trying to learn legato one day, and I was using sequences of 4. And I noticed that when I'm using a pick, I flatten out my second finger to get to a particular note. That's not going to work when I'm doing legato at high speeds. I'm going to have to change which finger I'm using. I'm going to use my first finger again to get to that particular note. How would I know that if I never actually sped up to the point where I would see the idea under the pressure of speed? So what you should be doing is slowly speeding up, but every once in a while going to its final destination to see if the idea holds up. And we don't know what might break down. It might be a picking hand, it might be a fretting hand, we might be forgetting what the idea even is to begin with. But you have to push that idea to see, is it holding up? So when playing guitar, we have to take 2 things into consideration: phrasing and speed. Speed, we now know we have to make sure that our equipment is comfortable. We have to make sure that we actually understand how the exercise is exhibiting the idea that we're working on. We also make sure that we slowly speed up in increments, always pushing it every once in a while, I say every 5 tries. And we also know that we have to practice every single day for 15 minutes to make sure that the principle of specificity actually starts to kick in. The more we practice, the better we get. But with phrasing, you might want to check out this video.